Thursday and Friday, we have the first round coming up. We are going to make picks for every single game in the first round, and we can't wait to do that. So let's get into it. Grant going to share the bracket here, and we're going to start making some moves. We start in the upper left corner of the screen in the East region, the Duke Blue Devils trying to go back to the Final Four for the second consecutive season under John Shire, going up against Siena. I don't even know what conference Siena is in, but they are going to get smacked by the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, we got 32 picks to make here, so we just got to speed through some of them, and we know what's happening here. It's Duke.
Next one up's a fun game, Ohio State versus TCU. Ohio State's kind of been the trendy pick. I've seen a lot of people leaning on them to potentially get to the second round, then upset Duke. I don't necessarily see that happening, but I would lean Ohio State in this game.
See, I'm not mad at that, but I do think TCU actually has a sneaky chance here. I think they are a very good team. They've had some pretty big results. They beat Florida. Obviously, that's a big result for them. They beat Iowa State, Texas Tech, and they have a really good defense. So I think this is kind of the true 8-9 as far as being a 50-50. I took TCU in my bracket, but I'm really not mad at either side.
All right. So we'll go Ohio State since this is going to lead right into my bracket pretty much. But I do agree that's going to be a coin flip game. We got a lot of good 9-8 games on the card here. Then we go to St. John's, Northern Iowa. St. John's just bodied UConn. I'm going to put them in there. I know it's a 5-12 game. Anything can happen in those. Those are pretty trendy upsets. I believe Oricon is in a 5-12 game with McNeese too. So I'm not ruling out any 12 seeds here, but I would lean towards St. John's.
Yeah, got to go St. John's. They're physical. Patino has the boys playing right at the right time. So you got to go with the Red Storm.
Definitely. Okay, so then we go to Kansas and California Baptist. That CBU game was crazy. Did you watch how they won?
Yes, I did.
That was insane. Anyways, their run ends. Kansas wins.
Yeah, thank you. It was an insane ending, but it comes to an end here. Kansas is moving on.
So USF versus South Florida, I feel like this is a little bit of a trendy potential upset game here. I like what South Florida can do. Louisville's obviously a talented team, but I love Wes Ennis for South Florida. I think he's going to have a massive game here, and I'm going to lean towards the upsets because I don't like picking upsets. This would be the first one that I think can happen.
Yeah, so I totally get that because Mikael Brown Jr.'s health status is just such a huge question mark. I mean, Pat Kelsey is saying what coaches are supposed to say, but it's what they say when players normally are not going to be playing. It's like he's making as much progress as he can. We feel great about where he's at, and if he's 100%, he'll be out there. None of that is, yes, we expect him to be good to go. So it's a question mark and maybe one that you sit on really until the bracket locks. I can understand why you would go to South Florida. Louisville's a totally different team with or without him. So I'm probably personally just waiting to see if Mikael Brown's playing or not.
I would take the 5.5 points without South Florida for sure. I know we don't have spreads here, but I'm going to lean towards South Florida here. Again, everyone's bracket's different, but I will go with them. Michigan State, Jeremy Fears going up against North Dakota State. I think Michigan State probably wins this game pretty easily. I don't know about you, Grant.
Yeah, Michigan State, definitely.
All right, then we go to UCLA versus UCF. Grant, I'll let you start it off here. How you feeling about this game?
I mean, I think that this could be a very good game. UCLA, we saw them be competitive / beat a lot of very good teams. They split with Michigan State. They beat Purdue, who, of course, won the conference tournament. They were really close with Arizona early in the season. So I think that they're a very good team. And they have I would like the coaching, obviously, with Mick Cronin. You always got to trust them, and they have some experience in this tournament. So they're my team in this particular matchup. I think UCF does have some upside, but even if they win this game, I don't see them really going on a run in this tournament. Whereas I can see a world where if UCLA does get to the round of 32, just with the coaching and the experience, like they probably have a chance to beat UConn. Not saying they would, but they're just the team that, and sometimes this helps me figure out my first round matchups. It's like, okay, well, who do I think has a better chance at the second round? And if I feel better about that team, then I go back to the first round and say, yeah, they'll probably win there.
That's a good strategy. I lean UCLA too. I love Mick Cronin. He's kind of an a-hole a little bit.
I mean, the committee knew what they were doing, putting UCLA and UConn against each other early on. They're like, we got to get one of these coaches out of the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, UConn got screwed. The fact that I think first of all, I think UConn's got a great chance to win the East. But the fact that their opening game is Saturday night at 10 o'clock on the East Coast is beyond me. They play in Philadelphia at 10 o'clock. That's ridiculous. That should never happen.
Are they the last? I think there's a 10-10 matchup as well, isn't there? A
I think that's
10-10 tip-off?
West Miami, Missouri. I imagine that's
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
like,
Okay.
but 10 o'clock on the East Coast. They play after UCLA, UCF. And I know you want to put UCLA and UCF at 7:25 because it's a better matchup, but you should not be having them play at that time. They should be playing at 10 a.m. If you got to go to 10 p.m., you need to start these games at 9:30, 10 in the morning.
When I was an athlete, though, I liked having night games or night whatever. I liked being. I don't know. I felt like my body just performed the best later in the day.
That's too late though. 10 o'clock. UConn wins. So there's our East region right there, which seems pretty good. I mean, you would potentially go Louisville there. I think Louisville could win that game. Ohio State, TCU could win. I think the other ones are pretty set in stone though.
Yep, agreed. Let's move on to the South.
All right, so we'll keep going down here. Florida Gators versus a play-in team. I will go with the Gators. I don't think we need to spend too much time on that one. I think you're going there too, Grant. But Clemson, Iowa. How you feeling about this game?
I got to go with Iowa here. Bennett Sturt's obviously a great player. And the fact that Clemson only has one player averaging more than 10 points per game does worry me. Now, you can look at some of their results and say, they beat Louisville, which we were just talking about, and they did beat UNC by 1 point. But for the most part, they lost those big priority games. And I'm not saying that it's been any different with Iowa, but I think that they have the best player in this matchup. And I think they are a better overall team as well.
I would agree with that. I'm going to lean there as well with the Iowa Hawkeyes. I also, the one fear I think I have about Big Ten teams is how slow they play and all that. And I think the ACC is a little bit of a different beast, but I would lean towards Iowa there. I think the physicality wins out. Vanderbilt versus McNeese. I love what Vanderbilt can do. They did not have a great game in the SEC championship. Tyler Tanner, the guard, I believe he didn't have a great game, but it was really just Darius Acuff taking over. It was nothing Vanderbilt did. They stayed competitive as long as they could. Now you have McNeese, you have Oricon. I'm going to pick Oricon just out of respect to McNeese. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but they've done it before, and they're going to be very competitive. And the boombox is electric. So I'm going to go with McNeese.
We have to put Vanderbilt in the bracket. You can put that in your personal bracket. For the sake of the video here, we have to go with Vanderbilt. You saw what they did in their big games. Yes, they might have come up short in the Arkansas or against Arkansas in the SEC championship, but that was Acuff just going ballistic, like you said. They have really good results. They've beaten Tennessee a couple of times. They've beaten Kentucky. They've beaten Florida. Finished the season playing really well. They got a lot of dudes who can score the ball. So you got to, for the sake of the video, you got to put Vanderbilt.
All right. So let's just do some math here. So McNeese is 68th and Ken Palm. Vanderbilt is 12th. If we go back to last year, who did McNeese beat last year? McNeese
it was 60th. Clemson, right?
McNeese was 60th. They won 2 games, I thought, didn't they?
I think they did. They beat Clemson in one of them, if I'm not mistaken.
All right. So if we go to McNeese, I'm doing some math here. So McNeese last season, they beat Clemson. They lost to Purdue. So Clemson last season was in Ken Palm. Clemson was 23rd. So this one's going to be a little bit bigger of an upset if they're able to pull it off. But I out of respect to Oricon, I mean, there needs to be some Cinderella. Vanderbilt feels like a team that could get knocked out. They've been tremendous, don't get me wrong, but they feel like a team that could get knocked out. So I'm going to go with McNeese there.
You can't you can't just monopolize when we are split, you can't just put all of the 50-50s for you. We have to put Vanderbilt.
But this is my bracket though. This is my bracket. But again, you people know, I mean, they're listening to the video. So you pick Vanderbilt, I pick McNeese. We got to go with McNeese because this is my bracket on here.
All right. We're going McNeese. You're in control of the mouse.
There you go. Nebraska versus Troy. I lean Nebraska. I don't know about you, Grant.
Unless Troy Bolton is coming out to save Troy, then maybe. But for now, we'll go with Nebraska.
Nebraska just they play well as a team. They have to play well as a team because they don't necessarily have like top end talent across the board. But when they're playing well and they're playing fast and making their threes, they're very fun to watch. 6-11 game, North Carolina VCU. This could be one that gets interesting. I think VCU could potentially pull off the upset. It depends what the health status of North Carolina, but I want to say this is another game that I'm leaning towards an upset. But what do you think, Grant?
Yeah, if you're North Carolina, you got to get into the paint. VCU can be small down there sometimes because they have a lot of these fast guards who like to attack. They kind of have a heavy free throw dependency. So if you're playing them and you defend without fouling, then you put yourself in a better position. I ultimately went with North Carolina, although I do think this will be a very interesting game to watch. And VCU's got such a distinct style that they're one of these teams that, yeah, if an opponent's not ready for them, they're going to be like, well, I haven't played a team like this season, so what do I do? And they'll catch them completely off guard. So Hubert Davis got his work cut out for him, just making sure that his team is prepared. If they are, they can handle it. But if they're not, they'll probably lose.
North Carolina. There you go, Grant. We both agree. Illinois versus Penn. I think Illinois is a team that can make a run, potentially the Sweet 16. We'll talk about that a little later in the video. But I think Illinois wins this game and ultimately probably goes on to defeat North Carolina or VCU. Do you think the Ivy League boys can get it done, Grant, or would you lean towards the Big Ten?
No, you got to go with the Big Ten here, unfortunately.
And
I would love for an upset to happen here, but no.
Yeah, I agree. Then we got St. Mary's versus Texas A&M. You know, I've been talking to my buddies about St. Mary's and like the strength of schedule. I'm a believer in basketball. Strength of schedule does not matter nearly as much. We see it every year. Like football, strength of schedule matters, obviously. The St. Mary's equivalent in football, I don't know what it would be, but they would get smacked in this game. However, in basketball, when you look at what they played in the conference, not great. They did beat Gonzaga once. They still had a game against Vanderbilt. You played against Boise State, Virginia Tech, Wichita State. You played against the biggest game on your calendar is Vanderbilt and then the Gonzaga game. So you were able to beat Gonzaga. You lost to Santa Clara, also another competitive team, right there. There's teams on here that are competitive. I do think ultimately St. Mary's goes on to win this basketball game over Texas A&M.
I want to check what the spread for this game is. It is -3.5 for St. Mary's. I'm most likely going to end up betting this because this is such a classic thing with St. Mary's. They play so slow. They methodically knock down 3-point shots. And in a game where there's fewer points scored, 3-pointers mean more because there's less times the ball is going in the basket. They rebound extremely well, and they just completely take teams out of their rhythm. They've been doing this for years. If you look at KenPom, Texas A&M is in the top 30 nationally in tempo. St. Mary's is 297th. And I can tell you, because I've seen this story a million times before, St. Mary's is going to win this battle. This is going to be a slow basketball game with filled with half-court execution and rebounding, and that's everything that St. Mary's is. So I'm taking them to win.
St. Mary's wins there. Houston versus Idaho. Kelvin Sampson's team moves on to the round of 32.
Yeah, no question. Houston.
All right. Now we go up top here. Fins up. Arizona. They have the best. Long Island has the best home court in college basketball. You seen that?
Yes, I have.
They're not going to win.
They also make great iced tea.
Long Island iced teas. Yep. They're also on an island. So that's pretty cool. But Arizona will win this game. Villanova versus Utah State. Villanova is kind of like a joke of the Big East, I would say. Like they're not good. Like Villanova is not a good Big East. There's two good teams in the Big East. It's UConn and St. John's. Everybody else is not good. I will say that Utah State wins this game.
So I don't hate the shout. I definitely don't. They are just Utah State is disruptive. You would think Villanova teams of years past, when they were in their sort of, I don't know if you want to call them a dynasty, but when you just knew what they were year in, year out, you'd be like, all right, well, they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't make those mistakes. That's not going to be the case anymore. Well, it's a new era. It's a new era for them. And so Utah State coming in, MJ Collins, I know him as a former Virginia Tech Hokie. He's made his way out west. He wasn't always kind of a good perimeter player, but he's developed into that. So there's some upside there because you've got some high-scoring individuals on Utah State, a couple of guys averaging over 16 points per game. So, yeah, I think Utah State's one of the better upset picks in round one.
All right. So who are you going to take? You taking Villanova then still?
No, we can go with Utah State.
All right, Wisconsin versus High Point. Again, the 5-12 matchup is always a fun one. I believe like in the past 30, I saw this on Twitter. I think in the past 30 or 65-12 games, it's like pretty much 50-50 when it comes to the spread. Money lines obviously a little towards the five seed, but I think Wisconsin wins here. Nick Boyd's really good. They play fast. They're a physical team. Their High Point's a trendy upset pick, though. I've seen that one going around the internet a lot.
So I like the High Point upset, and I'll tell you why. Wisconsin, look, if their two best players are on, they can beat a lot of teams. If they're not, then they're barbecue chicken. That's just, they live and die with their best players. That means they're going to win games, and that means they will never come close to winning the championship because you're relying on two players to guide you through an entire bracket. So this could be a chance where, or it could be a spot where they go out and it looks like a total mismatch if their stars are on. But High Point, I mean, they've won something like 14 or 15 straight games. They, I want to say, are the highest scoring team in the country. If they're not number one, they're certainly one of them, over 90 points per game. They don't turn the ball over, and they force turnovers on the other end. Like, when we talk about upset teams in March Madness, you have to have some defining quality that makes you stand out. If you play an extremely slow tempo and you rebound well, if you shoot the three extremely well, if you have a ridiculous free throw percentage and you win the battle late in games, High Point style, at least their composition, has that quality to it. So I do see them as a legit upset team here.
All right, so I'm going to go with Wisconsin. Grant likes High Point. Again, my bracket, so we're putting that in there. But just take note, Grant does like High Point. Arkansas beats Hawaii. Acuff's fantastic. Simple as that.
Yeah, Acuff is outstanding. And I was looking at a mock NBA draft yesterday, and it was projected, he was projected to go 7th, which just goes to show the ridiculous amount of talent that there is in this draft.
He should move up, though, honestly. I would take him over Darren Peterson in a heartbeat. Kid
I
can't
wouldn't,
compete.
but
You know what? He's kind of like Walter Clayton Jr. at the point if Walter Clayton Jr. was like a top NBA pick. That's how I would describe Darius Acuff.
yeah, I think that's a good, similar style. Agreed.
Yeah. BYU versus Texas or NCSU. I will go with BYU here. I don't Texas maybe if they win, but I'll take BYU.
Yeah, difficult to know, obviously, because we don't know who they're playing, but I think you got to trust BYU. Would feel better if Richie Saunders was there, but still roll with BYU.
Gonzaga, Kennesaw State. Gonzaga wins here. Shout out Kennesaw State for making the tournament, though.
I'm not much of a believer in Gonzaga's long-term prospects, but they will beat Kennesaw State.
Then we got Miami going up against Missouri. Miami comes in as the 31st ranked team in KenPom. Mizzou is 52. A lot of people like Missouri in this spot for an upset pick. I tend to lean towards Miami. I think they were a better team all season, more consistent. So I'm going to go with Miami, but that is another popular upset pick.
I'm going to go with Miami as well. I mean, and you've got Malik Reneau and Trey Donaldson. Both those guys can go for 30 in a given game. I think Miami's better defensively, too, than Missouri is, and they've probably had better wins or better performances on their schedule. So, yeah, Mizzou is an upset pick, but I kind of think that's just because they're a 10 seed, and people like to pick 10s to beat 7s.
Definitely. Purdue versus Queens. Purdue has been upset in the first round before, but I will take Purdue based on what they did, at least in the Big Ten championship to against Michigan.
Yeah, they showed up. I didn't expect them to do what they did in the conference tournament. So they're definitely got to give them their respect against Queens.
All right, to the last side of the bracket, the Midwest. Michigan wins here, and then we go to Georgia, St. Louis. Grant, how do you see this one playing out?
Ooh, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Milk Chamberlain, Robbie Avila. Going up and making his March Madness debut here. Unfortunately, I have him and his boys losing. Now, you can call me biased because I have some ties to Georgia these days. But Georgia actually, obviously, they're not a basketball school. They will always be a football school, but their basketball program is growing. They've been ranked over the last couple of seasons. Earlier in the year, when Auburn was like number 1 or number 2 in the country, they beat them. They've beaten Kentucky. They've beaten Alabama. They've hung tough with Florida and Vanderbilt. And like they have talent on their roster. And I think they are peaking at the right time. Whereas with St. Louis, yes, you're coming out of you're coming off of a successful campaign in the A-10, but you didn't finish the season very well. I want to say they lost 3 of their last 5 or 3 of their last 6. And you are reliant on I don't want to say you're relying on one guy, but you do have a clear-cut best player, and that player doesn't even average 13 points per game. So when these Georgia athletes are just out running and gunning, I think it could be trouble for St. Louis.
I agree. I think Jeremiah Wilkinson for Georgia needs to be a little more consistent. He shot 16% in their second to last game and then was 25% in the SEC tournament against Ole Miss. So he needs to be a little more consistent. I think if he is, they find a way to advance there. So we got Georgia winning there. Texas Tech versus Akron. Tech's health is not great right now. Akron, coming off the MAC championship win, that was big. I would lean towards Texas Tech here. I still think they're going to be okay, even though they're not healthy. The MAC is just not as good as the Big 12.
So Texas Tech, the smart money's on Texas Tech. Even with JT Toppin being gone, they've still found a way to win a bunch of big games without him. But going back to what I was saying earlier about the qualities of upset teams, Akron has those qualities. The fact that they are top 10 in the country in 3-pointers per game, and they shoot it very efficiently. They're also extremely small and they don't rebound very well. So there's obvious variance in the way they play. They have to make their threes if they want to win games. But this is the type of team that causes upsets for other teams. And it's also the type of team where if they get hot they play on Thursday or Friday, whenever they play. If they get hot in game 1, their next game's only a day later. So they'll probably be hot in game 2 as well. And that they could potentially move on to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, you're asking for a lot with Akron, though. With that, I mean, they're 54th in offensive rating, 113 in defensive rating. Tech's been in big game. I mean, you could probably take away Tech's next best player, next couple best players, and find a way to still win this game most times. So I would lean towards Texas Tech. Are you taking the upset here, Grant?
I'm going to take the upset in my bracket. Yeah, they've only lost one time this calendar year, so I'll roll with Akron coming off of successful campaign through the MAC. Everybody was talking about Miami, Ohio. But when odds were released for the MAC conference tournament, it was still Akron that was favored above them. They were like, I want to say they were like minus 105, whereas Miami, Ohio, who was undefeated, was plus 190.
Yeah, definitely. And that was warranted as Miami, Ohio got beat by UMass. Alabama, Hofstra. Alabama just shoots threes. Hofstra cannot compete with Alabama. Alabama goes cold. Maybe they can, but I think Alabama wins this game. They're better.
Well, I want Alabama first and foremost to arrive to the game not in custody of local law enforcement. So that's a big question mark. The vibes are going to be off, I would assume, from that and potentially availability as well. However, still got to go with Alabama here.
Yeah, that was for marijuana. Aiden Holloway,
100 pounds of it.
So I didn't know that. I just saw marijuana. That's pretty impressive stuff. So he was selling. He was distributing.
He was trafficking for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 100 pounds. So what's
I mean, hey, listen, you get the NIL money, you invest it into some product, flip that. It's a business model, evidently.
I want to look at the legal limit of marijuana in most legal states because it's not recreational. Isn't even legal.
Probably like an ounce, and he had 100 pounds.
Most legal states, it's 1 ounce, I think, pretty much here. For recreational use. Legal up to 2.5 ounces, 8 ounces. So that's a half a pound, right? I think.
Yeah, half a pound. So just 200 times over the legal limit in the most liberal state as far as how much you could have.
So California is probably one of the biggest states that allows weed like recreational. That's 8 ounces. So he had
200 times that.
200 times the legal limit. Good for him.
Yeah, so that's hold on, I got to do some math. So to put this in perspective of being 200 times over the legal limit, if you're driving, your BAC has to be 0.08 or below. This is like having a BAC of 16.
That's crazy. You'd be dead. 100 pounds. That's good for him. Tennessee, Miami, Ohio, or SMU. Miami, Ohio's trash. They're going to get smoked by SMU. So SMU is going to play in this game, and the Volunteers are going to advance to the round of 32. What do you think, Grant?
So I would be interested to go back and look at the history of 6'11s. And admittedly, I haven't done this. 6'11s coming out of the first 4, because one of the big things that we see with March Madness is it's so weekend to weekend because you have a game, day off, game, and then it's like 3-4 days off. Because the winner of this Miami, Ohio SMU game will be coming off of a win, presumably they would have been playing well, or at the very least they have a chance to play well, but they're going to be confident. And that's not, you never want to be the team that's just getting started while teams already rolling. Like we talk about this in the NFL playoffs a lot. And there's a difference between this being the winner of the 16 seed game, which, is basically just going to lose anyway. Like Miami, Ohio, if they win this game, they will be 34-1 or something this season. And SMU is a solid team as well. And Tennessee, I don't think is unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. So I'll probably wait to see how the first 4 game goes, because if one of those teams plays very well, then I could see them beating Tennessee.
I could see it, but I don't necessarily see it happening. So I will go with Tennessee. Virginia,
I probably would as well, but it's just a thing I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Virginia, Wright State. I'm gonna advance Virginia there.
Yeah, thank God this isn't the boring Tony Bennett UVA. Like, this Virginia team actually wants to play some basketball. They still aren't flying up and down the court by any stretch, but good on offense, good on defense. They're more entertaining as well. So go UVA.
This game's really interesting coming up next. Otega Owe with Kentucky. Like, he's the one player that I do love for Kentucky going up against Santa Clara. We talked about strength of schedule, how it maybe doesn't matter as much in college basketball. Santa Clara is 35th in KenPom. And then I believe Kentucky is, let's see, where's Kentucky? They are 28. So this is a pretty dead even matchup. I think Owe is the best player on the floor. I want to lean Kentucky here. It's going to be a close game, but I'll take the SEC to advance.
Yeah, Owe is definitely the best player. The question is, does Santa Clara's depth make a difference in this game? And it certainly can. I'm going to roll with Kentucky as well, even though I think there is just more variance in how they play because they are more linked to one player.
Definitely. And then last game here, keep it simple. Iowa State. I think Iowa State could win this region pretty easily. So I'll advance Iowa State.
I think they're a lot better than Virginia. I would say I'd be surprised if they don't make the Elite Eight, and then it's them and Michigan to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if both them and Michigan didn't make the Final Four, honestly.
This is definitely the easiest region.